What withdrawal method are you using for retirement? If you are already in retirement or you're within, I'm going to say, a handful of months of retiring, what withdrawal method? From if you're looking at your 401k, if you did a Roth IRA or traditional IRA, if you just have all your money, I guess, into savings, what method are you looking at? Hey, this is Jeff at Below Average. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. To me, this one's going to be a big one as I'm on the outside looking in. This isn't one that I have personally have went through because I'm not retired. So I'm going to throw out a few suggestions of what individuals are doing out there and what's maybe what you hear a lot about if you watch enough YouTube or enough financial stuff, and give some perspective a little bit on that. And this is going to be from somebody on the outside looking in. That's why I love to see if there's any comments down below. If somebody happens to see this video, and you're retired, what method are you using? And do you like it? And maybe what are the reasons for it? So the first one, which is probably the worst one, is you're just winging it. Just doing whatever. You might have maybe just threw all your money into the bank. You might have it just in a savings account. And you're just going through, drawing it out whenever you want, which is a horrible method. But if you're somebody who is retired and maybe had under, you only got 10, 5, 10, 15, 20, $30,000, you probably thought, I'm just going to throw it in the bank and just do that. I would say or suggest if you're an individual who's in that situation or is about ready to retire, and that is the situation you're into, and let's use an example. Hopefully you're somewhere just in your 60s. I would leave that alone. Do everything you can to still live off of your Social Security. And if you haven't retired yet, I would suggest maybe, and you're in your 60s, maybe you just need to work a little bit longer. Or on the flip side, you have retired, and you have like no money stuck away. You're going to try to do it on Social Security, and you think, I'm just going to throw my money in the bank, just do whatever I want to do with it when I want to do with it. I would suggest you try to find, if you physically can, try to find a small part-time job to add that money to whatever your Social Security, or if you have a pension. If you have a pension and one of those individuals, you're probably well off. You made a lot of money in your lifetime because the pension scenario is like non-existent nowadays. But that's what I would do if you didn't have the pension, you're trying to live Social Security and you're just going to wing it, is to hang on, leave that money in an aggressive account because you really don't have a lot there anyways, and hold off and wait till you're forced to take money out. And if it's age 70 and maybe you get another 4, 5, 6 years into the market, that you'll actually build up a little bit more money in there for a true withdrawal rate of whatever amount of money you have. And you're gonna have to make some changes between now and then. Another one, probably the vast most popular. You watch enough videos, enough finance people, you'll be able to end up here in the monthly withdrawal rate. And I personally think a lot of this one comes down to is that, yeah, you got so many bills per month. You get a bill every month for everything. And this is the easier one to have money coming in, a check coming every month, and just pay those bills along with any other money you have coming on in. And that's a lot of it. I know there's some people, I think, of videos I've watched where they talk about their strategies are, well, you're taking out a smaller amount per month, that if the market's bad or good, you're not pulling too much out where you can make some, and if it's bad, you're not pulling too much out that you won't hurt yourself as much. But most people, obviously their entire lives, they have paid bills by the month. And I think that's probably one of the most convenient. I don't know if that's still the greatest or the best strategy. That one's kind of a tough one, as I'm on the outside, looking in, trying to give some perspective. And then there's another one, which it's hard to find a lot of, I think a lot of videos or people talking about the one, is just pulling out money one time a year. It could be any time, beginning of the year, it could be whatever. And that's the one, at least at this point, why I'm on the outside looking in, that I'm looking at is to pull out money once a year, and all that money that comes on out directly goes into, or directly goes right to bills. You look at your consumer's bill for heat and electric, pay that for an entire year. And do that with all your bills. Your vehicle insurance, pay for the entire year. If you hopefully don't have a vehicle payment, but if you do, you got to get rid of it. But if you do, you pay that for the entire year. You look at other things, your garbage bill, if you have a water bill, if, your property taxes, any monthly bill, like your internet bill, if you still have a cable bill, which I highly recommend no cable bill. There's other avenues out there. But all those things is to try to pay all that off for the whole year. So your only bills you really have per month is you're going to have like gas in your vehicle, food, and if you got like a certain, if you buy some clothing or you got gifts or whatever, that's the main thing. And if you could, and this, to me, this is where I would think it would ease a lot of stress from people. If you can have enough money stuck away that you just pull on out to cover those bills every year. Now, there's a question of how much is that? How much can that be? How much do you pull out? What do you do? And I go back to what I say in a lot of my videos. You must have a budget. You must have been doing a budget, I'm telling you, for at least a year. Write down everything that you have, everything right to the dollar, everything that you buy, all the things that come in within a year. And you would be able to have a very, very, very good idea of what everything costs. You'll be able to see, you can have item one, for me, it's like consumer's energy, your heat and electric bill. You can see if I've been doing that for years, I would know, you could still go to the account and you can look that on up. But in a budget, this is where you're forced to look at all your money and where it goes all on one page, either write it down or on the computer. All kinds of, there's all kinds of apps out there you can do it on too, but you don't need to get fancy. This is simple. And you can end up seeing by how you can knock out those big ones by pulling out money once a year and paying all those big high item lines off. To me, this would be the area for which this is one avenue to look at well before retirement. That if you can retire, and how much money you need to have stuck aside for this. For instance, if you have all these outgoing bills, add up to be, say $10,000 for an entire year, and you'd pay off all those bills I mentioned: heat, electric, your car insurance, water bill, garbage bill, internet, any monthly occurring bills, and you just pay them off once a year. You could easily look at the amount of money you'd have stuck in an account. This is upon retirement. So for instance, let's say you had $100,000. Now, how much do you pull on out? You can't do this scenario and pull out, say, 10 grand for that on a $100,000 account. You will go broke. You can't do it. So that means you don't have enough money stuck away. You're probably going to look at a part-time job while you're retired, or unless you get a tremendous amount of a pension or Social Security. This is how I'm looking at it from the outside looking in. Is I want to be able to have enough money in a combination 401k, Roth IRA, whatever you want to do, your actual retirement money that you stuck away from work. And this is where I think you can get to the point where you can start seeing you don't need millions of dollars. All that promoting out there by the financial institution of crazy money you need, there's a lot of that's being pushed because the more you stick away, the more money they make. So by having the budget, knowing what you spend per month on everything, and been doing this for at least, a year, you can do this you just keep it going. After a while, hopefully it gets to be such the norm. You just keep it rolling. You will be able to see that you don't need that kind of crazy money. If you have it, that is awesome. That is awesome if you've been in the position for that. But if you don't be scared. Don't be nervous about it. You don't end up needing that. Like I said, do the budget. You start seeing how much money you really truly need. And let's just say you can just project that out and say, you could be in your 40s or 50s and say, Oh, what if I was 65 and I'm going to retire now and this is the bills? How, do you have enough money stuck away? And is what you do is you can look at that account that you have all your money stuck into, and you're saying, you know what, once a year in January, I want to pull money out of there to pay off all those recurring bills. And how much do you need? First, you look at your budget. You itemize all those items that are reoccurring every month, no matter what. And just for an example, let's just say it's $10,000, and you look at your money. What do you need in there to pull out to hopefully not hurt the principal? All you want to try to hopefully do is pull out enough money that you're earning off your investments to keep paying the bills and keeping ahead of inflation. So on just a crazy, throwing numbers out there, nothing fancy, looking at that scenario is if you pulled, and a lot of people have heard of this, the 4% rule. It's not the golden rule. It's not the best rule. Everybody's going to be different. But I think if you're just thinking about it, you're just like, well, what am I going to do? What am I doing now? And is that right? What can I do in the future if I'm in my 50s or 60s and about to retire, 40s? You can use this thought process for your entire life of sticking money away before you pull money out. 4% rule at least is the simplest thing to think about, and then you can make slight adjustments well before you get there. Well before you get there. So for an example, to have $10,000 taken on out, you're looking at $100,000 at 4% is 4, so 200 could be 8. So if you had $300,000, which is a lot of money, but if you can start off early, that's not the millions they make you think you need, right? That's $12,000 right there under the simple example of just how we're talking about now. We're just talking simple examples. That's 12,000, and you said you needed 10. Just that right there alone, you can see you could pull that out and pay that off, and you got a couple grand extra there. In theory, that might pay for some taxes if you're in a tax bracket at that point. It's possibly you might not. If you're like this channel, below average, you might still not even be paying any federal or state taxes on that stuff after your deductions. But that gives you at least a close idea of that example there, that if you had 300 grand, you took out once a year at 4%, that's $12,000. And if you had $10,000, and now you just look at the bills, if you have $20,000, different story. If you have 5,000, you're doing on 8,000, whatever. You got different things to, to look at that. But that's a simple, just quickly thinking, without having to go, I got to go research this stuff and spend all kinds of time on it. You got plenty of time, especially if you're in your 30s, 40s, 20s. Oh my gosh, you got all kinds of time to do this stuff. But if you're really in retirement, what are you doing? If you're approaching retirement, what are you thinking? At least on what you're going to do. Just because I want to know. Like I said, outside, this is the outside looking in. This is something I'm looking at. I'm not necessarily 100% worried about that. You take a big chunk out, and if things are going good, you don't have that money in there to keep investing. Technically, the thought process of when you retired is slightly different than when you're trying to build up the money, for retirement. So I look at that as taking the ease and mind and peace off of paying all those high-end bills. And then look how easy it would be as if you just had to pay for, like I said, your food, gas for your vehicle, maybe something breaks down, little things, and you got a Social Security check coming in. Doesn't that right there look amazingly easier? By breaking it down, you can at least get some kind of idea and feel more comfortable about maybe where you're at. And if you're in your 50s and you're an individual that just could not stick much money away, you feel like you're below average and you feel like you'll never get there, you can look at this example that if you could, wherever you're doing, whatever you're making, and you can utilize the 401, or you've been doing that, and you just stick a little bit more in, you can start seeing where in 5, 10, 15 years, when you're going to fully retire, you might be in the upper 60s then, on a possibility, where you're going to be at. You can just look at where you're at now. If you only have 20 grand stuck, 30 grand stuck away, and you're in your mid 50s, I would suggest to see if you can add more to your 401k. But if you use like some simple rules of, 72, where they talk about, you know, that 6%, you know, you can double your money every at 6%, I'm sorry, hit 12% rate of return, which is very high. It's just a simple math just to look at. You're looking at 6 years to double your money. If you had 20, 30 grand and you could go 2 more times, you know, 20 goes to 40, 40 goes to 80. Plus you're sticking already money in. It'll give you an idea, and if you really have to buckle down and do it, you might have to even think, you know what, maybe I need to work a little bit more time to offset that. But it's just examples, something to think about well before you're there, because it's easy to pick off financial stuff from things that are being talked about, and you can hear this $1,000,000 thing, and then all of a sudden you're just giving up. I'm never going to have that. I mean, why even try? And this is why I'm trying to help break this down to give you some examples of you don't need that kind of money to retire. First, remember, budget. Need to know exactly where everything's going so you can be comfortable and seeing if you can make some cuts yourself. Two, where are you at right now in your 401k and how many years you got to go? And then three, maybe if you have to add anything in there, because now that you end up, if you look at this example, just for something simple to do for now, until you get within 6 months or a year, you're going to maybe look at it a lot tougher. It's just ideas and examples. It's a way to take your stress down from retirement, especially if you're close and you really don't think you have enough. This will give you hopefully an idea of where you're at. And another thing I brought up in another video to get you an idea on your Social Security with your budget is go onto the Social Security website, create the account. It'll give you a ballpark idea of where you're at on how much you would get, depending on the year or your age when you retire. And that number there, you should truly look at taking that number just for simple examples. You take that number and see where it's at on your budget right now, knowing that when you get to retirement, the budget will be smaller, and just to see where that's at. If that can match up, especially if the Social Security can be bigger than your budget, because you might have to work a few more years. Takes a load of stress off on thinking where you're at. It was only maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago I was nervous about it. I probably don't have enough money coming out of my Social Security to end up, doing everything that I'm going to need in retirement. Went on the Social Security site, did the whole thing, signed up, and I could see it brought a lot. I was more comfortable afterwards. I was very comfortable knowing where I was at, where I'm below average. I made below average income for a family in my lifetime. And I can see the biggest thing is I'm going to end up not being able to claim till later, probably late 60s, maybe even 70 if I can. That's at least right now my thought process. But I could see where that number, how much I'm projected to be approximately at versus my budget right now. And as I got a rolling budget, keeping track for a year to see where it's going to be at, my hope is that those numbers will coincide and be really close. Especially the big thing, house has to be paid off when you retire, and do everything you can not to have any kind of substantial car payment. It's got to be cheap, or try not to have one at all. No credit card debt. Those are all huge. Not going into retirement makes a big difference. You'll appreciate yourself if you can take care of that stuff well ahead of time. So those gives you just some simple examples. All I'm trying to hear is just to bring the ease down on people who might be stressed on retirement, on what to do. How am I going to pull my money out? What kind of withdrawal system am I going to use? And I try to think about it and break it down to myself into simplest forms, because at that point, if you can't see a win for yourself at that point, then you need to know I need to make a big change now before I get there. And hopefully you have plenty of time to do it, but you would rather going into any scenario of retirement, or even if you're 10 or 15, 20 years out, you would rather you'd rather be comfortable knowing what you should have. Even if you don't have enough, you know what to expect, and hopefully you got time to make the corrections. So I think this is kind of simple. I'm hoping that people can at least anybody who watches this will get some kind of idea. But please like, subscribe, comment down below on what you're doing. If you're in retirement, what you're doing, or if you're not. I'm not talking anything fancy. I'm not talking about if you have millions of dollars and you're using this certain account and having an investor do this or all this kind of stuff. Looking at just below average or average individuals out there who are really trying to think about retirement and how are they going to process the system for when they are or when they do retire, and how is it going to impact them and where are they at. You actually might be far enough ahead now that maybe you can sit back and say, oh my gosh, I can actually not be stressed about this. Maybe I can even invest a little less to take care of things that I'm not doing now because I'm so worried about retirement. But you won't know it till you do your budget, go to the Social Security site, see where you're going to be at, apply some basic thought processes on what I've mentioned, and go from there. Hey, I hope this helps. At least it might, jar your mind or get you thinking about it. That's it. Hey, thanks again. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, and have a great day. Bye.